Live from Fargo and serving you on TV, online, and on the go, this is Valley News Live at 5.
As the pandemic continues, a shortage in materials like lumber and aluminum has become a growing problem for local business owners. Valley News Team's Bailey Hurley talked with two men today who say while they're in the clear for now, what the future holds for their businesses is unknown.
Having a passion for pickling came early for Kevin Struxness.
Growing up, my mom always did it, my grandma did it. We just kind of turned a hobby into a business.
Now in their fourth year, Struxness says 2020 has brought a lot of roadblocks for hairy hippies.
Since, February, we've basically been seed shortage, to jar shortage, to now aluminum shortage.
Struxness says jars and lids go for about double their original price online, adding most won't even ship until early November. Adding while he can reuse customers' old jars, the lids can't be resealed.
I picked up 23 jars, but I had to go to 7 stores to do it, so it's been a grind.
And while a different kind of shortage, Grant Koenig with Grain Design says he feels Struxness's pain as the lumber industry continues to see an increased demand but scarce supply.
We've definitely seen a shortage in primary building materials. A lot of our products that we ship out of state, we have to crate, and a lot of that's plywood, 2x4s, things like that. And we've had a really hard time finding.
Koenig says thankfully Grain Designs had a large lumber order just before COVID hit.
But again, when it comes time to reorder, it could be an issue. But
however, both Koenig and Struxness say while the immediate future looks okay for their businesses, neither are certain of the future if things don't change soon. In Fargo, Bailey Hurley, Valley News Live.
To learn more about these businesses, head to our VNL News app. A 19-year-old man is facing federal charges after court documents say he tried to derail a train earlier this spring. Skylar Goodman is charged with violence against a railroad carrier. Court documents say he tried to derail a BNSF train on May 7th. Goodman is also facing felony charges in Cass County for allegedly pointing a gun at his ex-girlfriend and throwing her to the ground. Goodman has pleaded not guilty. We are back to the chilly mornings. We can't seem to shake those below average temps either. Let's find out what's happening this evening. Hutch?
Thanks so much, Andrea. We have a few clouds, as you see, out to the west of the FM area, and the radar continues to show a couple of spits of rain here and there, most of which are not making their way down to the ground. We have cool 50s northern Minnesota, low 60s, though, for many in southeast North Dakota. There is a look at that rain on the radar, moving from north to south through the region. A fair amount of cloud cover is what we can expect this evening, with hit and miss sprinkles not out of the question. And also not out of the question. Freezing conditions most likely in areas you see shaded in purple. That's where we have freeze warnings in effect. Once again, northern Minnesota will see temperatures cold enough for a hard freeze, and some will see the end of the growing season. In Fargo tonight, we'll be in the 40s by the time we get to bedtime. Cloudy skies will remain cloudy until we get to the overnight hours. Grand Forks will be a little cooler and on our way into those upper 30s briefly, possibly, as we head through the overnight. I'll have details on a nice warm-up, Andrea. Here in just a couple of minutes, we'll talk about that weekend outlook as well.
Like the sound of that warm-up. Thanks, Hutch. A man accused of murdering a 64-year-old man in a North Fargo apartment complex last winter is now set to go to trial. 43-year-old Daryl Peterson is charged with murder in the death of Dwayne Darling. The assault happened in November of 2015 at Pioneer Manor Apartments. Someone heard a man screaming for help and called police. Officers say they found a metal piece of furniture shaped like a bar stool soaked in blood. Peterson's trial is slated to start in March of next year. A man is in jail tonight after leaving the scene of an accident. Police arrested 26-year-old Cody Haller yesterday afternoon. They say he crashed into another vehicle in West Fargo along the 1600 block of 9th Street East and then ran away. A police canine found him hiding near a garage. Authorities say he was also had meth on him. A scary morning for one driver after an SUV rolled 360 degrees and landed back on its wheels. The crash happened around 6:45 this morning in Grand Forks at the intersection of 34th Street and 36th Avenue South. Wanji Zarkiz hit the SUV, causing it to flip over completely and again land back on its wheels. We don't know yet if that driver was injured. Zarkiz was taken to the hospital but is expected to be okay. He was cited for disobeying a stop sign. The Otter Tail County Sheriff's Office needs your help finding 44-year-old Joshua Sunblad. He was reported missing yesterday from rural Earhart, Minnesota. If you have any information on him, go ahead and call the Sheriff's Office, 218-998-8555. Countries across Europe are seeing a resurgence in coronavirus cases after successfully slowing outbreaks early in the year. Meanwhile, the U.S. continues to report thousands of new cases every day. NBC's Raf Sanchez reports from London on how the U.S. and Europe compare when it comes to the COVID-19 response.
President Trump is still talking about the coronavirus as an invisible enemy that needs to be confronted and defeated. In much of Europe, the attitude now is more that this is an unwelcome neighbor. We don't really like it, but we have no choice but to live with it. And that means that those big, dramatic national lockdowns we were seeing in Europe early on in the pandemic, now largely a thing of the past. They've been replaced with more local measures to try to control the virus. And life is getting back to a semblance of normal. So schools are reopened basically across the European continent. Indoor dining, which is only creeping back in places like California and New York, now pretty much the norm in most European countries. You're also not seeing European leaders talking about a vaccine as if it's a silver bullet, the way that President Trump is.
But we don't have those vaccines now. What we do have are well-tested strategies that we know work. It's not just about masks. It's not just about physical distancing. It's not just about avoiding crowded spaces. It's not just about hand hygiene. It's about all of those things. Do it all.
Numbers are going up in several European countries. Here in the UK, there's a serious testing shortage just as numbers are spiking. Prime Minister Boris Johnson is talking about a moonshot of millions of tests being done every day. But the reality is the UK right now is struggling to do even 200,000 tests a day. And there's serious concern that if the government doesn't get those testing numbers up, that major restrictions will still be in place at Christmas time, and that's going to put a real dampener on the holiday season. Raf Sanchez, NBC News, London.
Let's take a look now at the COVID-19 numbers. In North Dakota, there are 394 new cases, along with 5 more deaths. The death toll now sits at 182. The active case count is more than 2,700. In Minnesota, health officials are reporting 931 new cases of COVID-19, along with 9 new deaths linked to the illness. More than 1,900 deaths have been reported. More than 79,000 people have recovered. Moderna expects to know if its coronavirus vaccine works by November, according to the company's CEO, who appeared on CNBC this morning. The CEO says it is possible the company could know by next month, but that it was unlikely. The Phase 3 trial has enrolled more than 25,000 volunteers. It is expecting 30,000.
We anticipate our base plan for efficacy for the first interim readout to be in November. That's our base plan. Our best plan is October. I think it's unlikely, but it's possible. And if the infection rate in the country was to slow down in the next weeks, it could potentially be pushed out as a worst-case scenario, I would say, December.
The company also released details of its plan for analyzing data from that trial. A woman who contracted COVID-19 at a Moorhead long-term care facility in April has finally left the hospital. In May, we spoke exclusively with the family of 65-year-old Karen Haroldson. Her family told us she was infected with coronavirus while staying at the Moorhead Rehab and Healthcare Center. She spent nearly 5 months at a hospital dealing with COVID-19, at times having to breathe through a ventilator. Today, Haroldson was released from Sanford Hospital. She will now be living at Bethany Retirement Living. First-time claims for unemployment have dropped again this week, but many analysts say it's not fast enough. The Labor Department reports 860,000 people filed for first-time unemployment benefits last week. The number of continuing claims, or people who have received unemployment benefits for 2 or more weeks in a row, has also dropped. Both numbers beat Wall Street's estimates, but markets are not expected to react favorably. Dow futures were down more than 300 points ahead of the opening bell today. There's a protest underway right now over the city of Horace's special assessments. The West Fargo Public School District says its property is being overly charged, and that may mean you could pay more in taxes. We'll have more on this story tonight on Valley News Live at 6. Attention ice cream and food lovers, time is ticking for you to get to the Tasty Freeze in Moorhead. The business says they have to close a month early because of COVID, a break-in and construction. As they fix damages from that July break-in, they're marking September 27th as their last day of the season. The owners say they will try to keep their tradition going of half-price ice cream on the last day. Facebook has unveiled a new virtual reality headset. While you might like this version better than the last one, that's coming up on Valley News Live at 5.
Passing clouds this evening as we head towards another very chilly night for some across the valley. I'll have hour-by-hour details on that, and we'll look ahead towards some warmer weather in your forecast coming up right after this.